Hi, my name is Adriane Tabag. I'm sitting here with Sandy King, and we are at the Comic-Con Long Beach 2016, and I'm with IdeateTV. Sandy, how's your day going so far?
It's going just great. We're down here in Long Beach. The fans are streaming in. It's a nice day outside. It couldn't be better.
You're married to John Carpenter, is that correct?
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time. How long have you guys been working with each other?
Geez. It's now 32 years.
Wow.
I know. I'm really old.
No, you're not. You're not. You have amazing life experience.
That's a good way to put it.
Absolutely. You produce movies, you write, and you work with comic books. And so is there any projects that you're working on at the moment that you can talk about?
Well, right now we've got 4 television shows that are at the studios getting ready to go to network. So that means you're like Schrodinger's cat. You're neither alive nor dead. So what happens nowadays is that all the development falls on the production companies themselves. So that keeps us really busy, but they're not yet at network, so they're kind of hard to talk about, but they are definitely John Carpenter projects, which means that the fans, when one of them goes, are going to get a new experience in both horror, thriller, suspense. They cover the gamut of, say, after-death experiences, split society experiences, all of that kind of thing. So those are going on. We've got 2 features out for financing. John's getting ready to go on tour, and his second album is coming out in April. So that's a little chaotic. And then we have the comic books. So we have Asylum, which is now in its completing its 2nd year and its 2nd arc, getting ready to start a 3rd arc. And we have Tales for a Halloween Night, which is an annual event every October.
Awesome.
That brings together a number of horror writers doing short stories. And we're launching a new comic called Vortex, which is outer space horror.
Outer space horror?
Yeah, you know, it'd been a while since we'd done some sci-fi.
Yeah.
So there's a great writer, Mike Sizemore, in England, and we'd been working on that. And so that should launch by this summer as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. Sandy, how long have you been, what inspired you to get into horror, the horror genre?
You know, it's all about storytelling. And there's an interesting thing. Richard Taylor from Weta and I were talking at San Diego Comic-Con one year. And even though horror has now become mainstream because the studios have figured out they can make money and there's a big audience, largely through the comic conventions they figured it out, we found that you can tell a lot of allegorical tales. You can reach a lot of people and say something that, you know, if you make Gandhi, you're preaching to the converted. Doesn't mean there isn't a place for serious stories. But we can say things to people in another format and address issues through fantasy. And we can talk to people, and I think comedy and horror are 2 places that you can take people out of their everyday lives and take them someplace else. And I found that it's a really fulfilling place to tell stories and make changes in people. That's far more fulfilling than just straight drama sometimes. So we found a very comfortable niche for ourselves that we can say more, do more. It's one of the first places where you had integrated casts. It's one of the first places where you could take chances that they didn't take in some of the straighter filmmaking. So that's what drew me to it.
That's fantastic. Would you attribute your interest in this genre to a particular person or to a time in your life or anything else along those lines?
No, I think I was lucky. I was fortunate that in my television and movie career, I've gotten to work with Francis Coppola, John Cassavetes, Walter Hill, Michael Mann, So I've had a great range of storytellers that I've worked with and for. And, you know, I value all the experience. So I did comedy with John Hughes, you know, and I did drama with John Cassavetes. And, you know, did like The Outsiders and Rumblefish with Coppola. So, you know, I think that in terms of being drawn to horror, I got my start with Roger Corman and all the B flicks because that's where people starting got to be. And then my first film with John was Starman, so that was fantasy. It wasn't horror per se. But he was really fascinated that I had done some of the films that were considered some of the worst ever made. You know, so, and they were proudly on my resume because it was some of the best work I'd ever done.
Wow.
Not necessarily on some of the best movies. So, you know, I think it's just you do the best job on what you're given. And I just always had a really good time, and they were with a bunch of really committed people who all went on and wound up making some of the biggest movies that are made today. We all got our start doing low-budget films, and that's what was being made at the time.
That's so cool. What advice for, say, like a young girl who wants to get into this industry?
Biggest thing I see is, I think that people have to be willing to start at the bottom, not the top. Everyone I see, first of all, they're not willing enough to go to school. You know, try and go to school and learn the basics. And then don't think you're going to come out and be the director and be the producer. I learned from every single job I've ever done, no matter what it was. And that went into making me the producer I am today. Everyone that works for me in my office has to spend a week in every department on the film so that they know when anyone coming in has a problem, what they've gone through in their department, whether it's wardrobe, props, special effects, any of them. And I think that there's something to be said for learning the job. And if you're making coffee, make coffee. Make the best damn coffee that's being made. Learn how to work the copying machine. You might be in the office alone later when you're the big important producer. And you're going to look like a fool if you don't know how to make coffees. Coffee, copies, any of that stuff. Learn how to do it. And make yourself valuable. Every job leads to the next job. My assistant, who's been with me for over 20 years, was a runner for the day on a movie, and I looked out the window and said, that kid that's running, tell him to stop running, he's going to hurt himself, and hire him for the movie. And he's been with us ever since. My handsome booth babe over here actually is a writer on one of our features, and he was just an associate of somebody else who'd been working with us, and he's the one who had, I call it, I grew up on a ranch, and we used to say someone had a lot of try. He's willing to tackle any job at any time. But the same should apply for a girl. Be willing to try anything. It doesn't necessarily have to look like it's that direct star path. Learn everything, because it all becomes a life experience matters. If you haven't experienced life, what are you going to put into art? And if you're a writer, read. Because if you haven't read, what do you learn about creating and how other people are creating? All of it goes together. So I'd say do it all.
Just do it all. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandy. Such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah,
nice
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Such the unlikeliest place, but you never know. You never know who you're going to run into in the bathroom.